Yo, what's up? Great news today. We're going to get another Ardennes offensive map, and this time, as you can see, one that actually looks like the real Ardennes offensive environment, meaning December of 1944 to 1945, with lots of trees and lots of snow. And hopefully also lots of weather effect, but we're going to find it out later. When are we going to get this map? I suspect in roughly 2 weeks, beginning of next month. For two reasons. A, there's still the event going on right now, and usually big updates, including new maps, are released after a big event ends, and also starting with a new big event. And it's usually quite time intensive after the first screenshots are posted to still post other things like new weapons, new vehicles and so on, possibly a stronger Pershing, we're not sure yet, and also some test server going on for 1 week. So yeah, I suspect in 2 weeks is a very realistic estimation. Now, why do we need this map? Well, first of all, why shouldn't we need this map? Because there are lots of reasons why this map is going to be great. The only downside I see is that since Enlisted is ridiculously slow regarding creating new maps, we have only a very limited amount of maps. Usually it's 2 per year that we get, 3 per year that we are getting. Now this means that if we get this map, there's no other map really advanced in progress. And everyone is demanding a new theater for the Soviets versus the Japanese, because the Japanese are the most strong nation regarding map variety. They literally don't have any. They have only a bunch of few maps who all look almost the same. And most importantly, play almost the same, which is boring. And they would like to get a new opponent. And the Soviets are in a similar position, because despite having a big map variety, since before the merger Soviets had multiple campaigns, they had 3 campaigns against the Germans. So lots of maps, but depending on which BR you're playing, if you're low BR, you're playing the good Moscow maps, and sometimes also Rezhev or Stalingrad. If you're playing high BR though, you only get Berlin, Rezhev and Stalingrad, which is extremely redundant because most of these maps are very similar. So the Soviets also want some new maps and a new opponent too, because they only fight against the Germans. So giving the two nations who need new maps and the new enemy the most a new map would be perfect. So just let the Soviets fight against the Japanese in Manchuria. Though apparently it doesn't seem to be dead for the next month. But fingers crossed that we get a Manchuria map at the end of the year. This would be absolutely great. Would be amazing. Everyone wants that. But still, a new map for Ardennes Offensive is great. Now, why do we need this map? Very simple. The Ardennes Offensive map we have so far doesn't look anything like the Ardennes Offensive. It explicitly says Hürtgen Forest, which was one of the areas. But the problem is, the Ardennes Offensive took place 16th December until 20 or 21st January, 44 to 45. So roughly 1 month. Amidst deep winter, amidst snow, amidst horrible weather, at least at the beginning. And the reason for that was that Germany was in a highly bad position, as everyone can imagine, militarily speaking and economically, and there was snow out. And Germany couldn't do anything, not even getting extremely lucky on multiple fronts, to somehow turn the tide of the war. But there was one way to still get lucky, and this is by somehow managing to make it happen that you get an armistice or even a peace deal on either the Western or Eastern Front, and then either withdraw your troops from the calm down front line and relocate them and concentrate them against your one remaining enemy, or even better, put a wedge in between both Western and Eastern allies, because there were many, especially on the civilian side in the West, who didn't want an alliance with the Soviets, especially not what after they did in the 20s and 30s, and who would have gladly fought against the Soviets. Also, the Soviets and also the Westerners already had plans for what happens after the war, because the war was obviously already won, numerically. And the question obviously was what's going to happen afterwards. when you have large masses of armies focused in Europe with completely opposing ideologies. And of course the Germans knew that, and they knew if they managed to get some diplomatic ammunition by one win, they can not only possibly create an armistice, but also create an alliance and see, okay, maybe if we create a peace deal on the West, we can ally with the Americans and the Brits and then fight together against the Soviets, because the Americans knew better than anyone else, since they had more economical insight into the Soviet economy due to the Lend-Lease, that Americans alone couldn't defeat the Soviets after the war, especially not if Germany didn't succeed in it. So this was an option. Or worst case scenario in that situation is that if you create an armistice with one side, the other side will lose its motivation to fight, because now your enemy suddenly can completely focus on you. And if you even create a peace deal with one side, the other side will absolutely know, all right, the war is over on the other side. Now we will have to endure all the intensity of the war. So having success in this Ardennes offensive had the chance to severely change the outcome of the World War, even shortly before Germany was completely defeated. And this was the actual hope of the Ardennes offensive, not to defeat the Americans. Obviously, you couldn't defeat them at this point in time. They were too deep in. But on the military level, the Ardennes offensive was planned for a few months. And the main goal was to, as you can see on this map, and yes, this is literally the best map you can find for that, because it's the clearest. I've looked at dozens of maps, and this map shows you exactly what's important. This was the German mainland. These are the Benelux states, the Netherlands, Belgium, and if you want to make a joke, France too, among them. And here was the famous Bulge. And here were many German troops, and they started putting in an offensive. And the goal was to go to the Antwerpen city, which has a little river which connects to the sea. And this Antwerp city was the main logistical harbor for the supplies that the American and British forces were getting on the European main continent. If you managed to push through, obviously powered by tanks, a couple hundred kilometers, up to the northwest, you would successfully cut off the whole Western Allies forces on the European continent. And then there wouldn't have been any offensives going on. Also, Germany desperately, as everyone knows, needed fuel, also ammunition, very much welcome, and it would have gotten all of this that was already sent there. Now, this was the optimal case, and obviously, if the whole Western Allies get into a standstill position, they will be, as expected by the German leadership, much more likely to negotiate an armistice, because, yeah, guess what? You can't really do any offensives or attacks anymore if you're out of resources. Also, keep in mind, the American doctrine was to spam a lot of firepower, because they had theoretically infinite resources in terms of ammunition, also in terms of fuel and everything. That's why, by the way, the Americans got the bad reputation of spraying and not even aiming or doing attacks strategically. No, it was doctrine to, if you have a platoon of soldiers and you suspect some enemies in a forest area or in a bush or even in a building, you just spray your Brownings and all your Garands into it, because you have enough ammunition anyway. The ammunition is not a problem for the Americans, but getting in there and risking getting shot and losing soldiers, now that's a problem. So the Americans had enough ammunition, but only if they actually can be transported to the continent, which was exactly the goal of Germany, to disrupt that. And the plans were to have multiple divisions. There were roughly 1 million men involved in the whole operation to push through and up to the north. Now, for those who know about the Bletchley Park and the Enigma code cracking, the Western Allies knew about many of Germany's secret communication channels through the cracking of the Enigma machine, which was a highly sophisticated encoding machine used to create random signals. If you send a signal, let's say you're you're the headquarters and you're sending a secret signal to an U-boat or a submarine, obviously this has to be somehow encrypted. And these machines did it. Problem is, what Germany didn't know, or at least for a long time didn't know, the Western Allies managed to capture such one machine. And then they cracked the code of it. And that was why the Western Allies could decode German secret messages for multiple years. But Germany found that out eventually because they saw that there was some suspiciously perfect movement going on and perfect reaction time going on. And that's why they started using motorcycles for the most important information flow. And what Germany did was, the main commanders in the Western area received secret orders to amass multiple 100,000 German soldiers, multiple hundred tanks, and almost 2,000 big artillery guns to prepare for this offensive. And since the Western Allies only had some sporadic information about some troop movements here and there, but they didn't get the overall picture, but they thought they would get it, if there was some offensive being planned, they were quite sure that there wouldn't be any offensive. Also, they saw how the Germans got weaker and weaker and weaker, and they expected Germany to not be able to do any offensive. And since they saw how bad the weather was, they expected Germany to, well, once again, not do any offensive. But this was exactly the opposite of what the Germans wanted, because the Germans saw that bad weather means the American planes can't properly operate. But now the German tanks can operate because they won't be blown up as they were in the last months constantly. So the Germans instantly took the chance and started their offensive, but eventually, after gaining some tactical advances successfully done, 6 months after the start of the Ardennes offensive, the front line was back to what it was in the beginning. So the Americans recaptured the territory. There was the Antwerp harbor was safe, and although both sides lost roughly 50,000 troops, the Americans roughly 85,000, Germans roughly 60,000, the Americans 2 months later had all the soldiers and material back, but the Germans didn't. So the lucky shot that was attempted by Germany failed, and despite that, the Battle of the Bulge, as Americans call the Ardennes offensive, was the bloodiest battle of the World War II for Americans, because they lost 20,000 soldiers. Dead soldiers, not just injured, but dead soldiers, which is the record for American casualties of a single battle. And since then, America never had battles like that, where so many people died. So that was one of the most famous battles in World War II history, especially for the West, especially for Americans. And as you can deduce from the relevance of the weather, that we really need this atmosphere. But there's still one problem. This looks realistic, because you have your forest, you have not the flat land that you have in this ugly ass Ardennes forest map. You have some nice ups and downs, rough terrain, and you have lots of trees, European style trees, important, because you want trees according to the geographical area. And you have these fortifications, but you also have some paths. And the description here promises that this isn't easy for tank campers. As for example, the Ardennes Forest map, because the Ardennes Forest map has some elevated positions that make it basically impossible for the other side of the match to win, unless you deal with the one tank that's gray zone camping on the hill. Now here, as you can, well, a little bit of see, you can just camp that easily. And if you're camping, let's say, in between these houses here, your line of sight is severely limited. So yeah, this is a much worse map for random camping, meaning it's much more strategical. Also, having lots of areas, lots of trees, means that infantry is stronger, since tanks can't just drive everywhere. High explosion effects are weaker, bombs are weaker. It's horrible for planes if they want to dive very low, since lots of trees means high risk for planes. Also, we have a little river here, Keep in mind, since roughly 1 year, since the introduction of APCs, Enlisted started making most rivers very shallow, so APCs can drive over them. And yeah, you can also see these stones are barely covered by water. So this is a very shallow river. You can easily run over it and drive over it. Also with tanks. And we got as the highlights the little railway station and a nice administration building. Looks really cool, looks comfy. Yep, this looks like some nice architecture you want to fight in and fight for. Yeah, these trees also look very realistic. Yeah, very good. Now, regarding the weather effects, this, if it was more intense, would be actually realistic. Because here's how the Battle of the Bulge actually looked like. Yes. These are American soldiers. And you can see very deep, very high snow. It's so high you can actually hide in it if you want. Yeah, and they even have their... At least this dude has a grease gun. Very nice, very fun. And this is what it actually should look like. And guess what? If you have so much snow, you also should depict lots of snowfall. Because this actually what would give this map a very nice, unique feeling. Same as the one of the best maps in the game, Fortified District. What makes it so good? Not only the deep snow everywhere, that makes it actually feel like a real snow area. No, you also get snowstorms during the battle. And this makes the atmosphere perfect. It maximizes the immersion. And we also need this, and we also need snowstorms, intense snowstorms, lots of bad weather, dark weather. That would be really cool. But what I see here so far is, well, too sunny weather. You can literally see the sun. Yeah, so yeah, if this map gets weather effects, it will be one of the best maps in the game instantly. This is what I hope. Also what I recommend everyone to post in the forum and in Reddit, because so far it's good, but let's hope it doesn't get ruined by stupid weather effects. Because as we already saw in the Hürtgen Forest, the Hürtgen Forest map is literally stupid because it's physically impossible. A, it's an autumn map. It's clearly not winter. B, there's barely any snow. And C, the little snow you have lies next to grass that doesn't survive in winter. So that would have been dead weeks or months ago. So what the fuck? It doesn't make any sense at all. It looks stupid and it's absolutely not Ardennes offensive material. But this map definitely is. Yeah, this map definitely is. I would say, yeah, we need that density of trees. Yeah, that's exactly what we need. Alright. This is good. Can't wait to play and get this map. I'm definitely going to upload some stuff because I have a good feeling about this. Last time we got the map was Regev, roughly 3 months ago. How did that play out? Well, the map is great. It has a unique feeling if it has the gloomy snowstorm and fog effects. Then it's cool, because then you feel something. If you have the normal sunny summer effects, although it's in winter, yeah, then it just feels like a generic vanilla map. Like, it feels like random Berlin, like random Stalingrad, like random Regev. So, like, there's no special distinct feeling in it. But the weather makes a big difference. And that's why we need more specific weather effects. We absolutely need snowstorms here, snowstorms and fogs. Or like stormy cloud, torrents and rain. Same thing as the Pacific needs rain. Like, you're living literally next to the sea. There should be and it's quite hot. So there should be lots of rain going on. There should be lots of storms going on. And all of this vegetation should constantly be whipped by the weather effects. But we don't see that. We see literally holiday weather, which is cool, but it would be great if you have a 50-50 mix. So let's hope we get the same thing here. Let me know what you think and how high your hopes are. And until soon, goodbye.